Casino workers of Reddit, what's the worst loss or worst case of gambling addiction you've seen? My mill was at a casino in Vegas when there was some kind of altercation that involved a gum. The police told everyone to get down. While crouching on the floor, people were still reaching up to play the slots. I live in Australia, which most people don't know has the highest rate of gambling losses per capita when compared globally. You can gamble at any pub bar in Australia as long as you are 18 or older. In one state alone in the last 3 months of 2024, the total losses were 2.2 billion. It's very hard to watch but hard to fix as it's legal and socially acceptable. At least when you go to Vegas, it's a trip with friends and or family and people are having fun. No one is really having fun here. They're like robots on the slot machines. I have regularly seen people blow through a whole paycheck in minutes and then try to borrow money to win it back. Or get payday loans with insane interest rates. It's a big problem here, but there's too much money involved for anyone to change anything. I dealt in 2 casinos in Australia for a total of around 5 years. So many stories, but the worst one would have to be the guy at 5 a.m. on Christmas morning who mentioned to the guy next to him that he had to be home by 7 a.m. so he could be there when his kids woke up and opened their presents, but was still at the table at 9 a.m. I had a guy win 40k on a slot machine on one of his first pulls. The guy was so excited and went to cash out. The cage attendant gave him 2k as his winning. When he asked where the rest of the money was, she smiled and said child support. Dude had to be escorted out by security. Wait, I'm completely ignorant about this, but is that actually how it works? Can the casino see if you owe child support or have judgments against you before they dispense winnings? Yes. The casino I worked at, the police station had a database that was somehow connected to ours to see child support payments. I believe our programmer named it Deadbeat Dad Detector. I was a hostess at a casino about 10 years ago. I worked on the top floor and normally watched people on the roulette tables below between orders. I saw a guy turn 50k into 250k. He was awesome, tipped us all and left. I carried on with my shift, went for my lunch at about 1 a.m. then went to the smoking area to find the same guy that had won with his head in his hands. He asked me for a cigarette, so I gave him one. I noticed he was crying. He proceeded to tell me how he went for some drinks, came back and lost it all and more. It was a regular thing seeing people crying in the smoking area, but this guy really ducked up. Edit, my grammar sucks. Worked surveillance at a casino for a bit. Every time someone hit a jackpot at a slot machine, we'd pull up their account. They were always, 100% of the time, down on their lifetime earnings. This included people that hit for 50k plus. Worst one I saw was 375k for the year, in July. A girl at work every so often sends screenshots of what she won in online slots. Everyone in chat praises her, but I can't help but think, but what have you lost to get that but payday every once in a while? I know she plays during downtime at work, almost obsessively. My first time to Vegas, I went with a large group of people. One of the boyfriends started off strong at blackjack. At one point he was up $300 from the $25 he had started with. But then he lost it all, which for me meant he lost 25. That was not how he took it. And for the rest of the time we were there, he tried to win the $300 back. I don't know how much money he lost, but I do know he had drained his checking account and maxed out a credit card. He didn't win back any money. Had a lady in a nurse's uniform walk out the front of the casino, stop by where I was standing and just blurt out, "I just lost my rent and grocery money." The only thing I could say was, "Oh no." She then looked at me and asked if I had any money she could borrow. I told her sorry, but no. I worked for a slot machine company and a woman called us saying our machine bugged and took all her money, about 3k. She said she pressed the button once and it kept playing for her, and in 5 minutes all her money was gone. Of course the machine has logs and we had cameras. We had to show her video of her playing for almost 2 hours pressing the buttons each time. She still told us that she did it once and it took 5 minutes and demanded her money back. Otherwise she wasn't going to be able to pay her rent and feed her kids. She called the police. Where I live, the state police manage gambling. They came and they told us she had no children and then tried to use a stun gun in her purse on our technician. It didn't go well for her after that. I worked at a casino as security for about a year, so I have plenty of stories. But in relation to your question, I saw a guy come in with a group of friends, never seen him before. He proceeded to win 10k that night on a couple slots. I saw him come back every night for the next month, always walking out with his head down. The casino I worked at was smallish, but every decent payout had to be done with security present. So yeah, he went through it all thinking he had the system figured out and then some. Lots of people had similar fates. Guy started with $300 and could do no wrong. When he got up to $5,000, we asked if he wanted to go to a high rollers pit because people would jump in on his game and mess him up. He said yes if I followed him there. In the high rollers pit he again could do no wrong, but what he was doing was chasing and bets he lost with higher bets. This worked out for him for a long time. He got up to almost 100 grand of 300 bucks. He called his girlfriend to get packed, they are going to Vegas to get married. He started losing. I told him to stop when he got to 80,000. He told me he just lost 20 grand and if he made it back he would quit. I told him he won 80, stop. By the time the girlfriend got there he lost it all and had $3,000 in markers. When she got there he got up and held her and cried. Worked at a casino for a few years in my early 20s doing FOH executive high-level player engagement. There was a woman in her 70s who played big but always made some money back. Well, she finally hit for around $1 USD and promptly told the casino she would no longer be gambling or visiting. She was steadfast in that promise. Fast forward a year, and the casino wants their money back. They invite her down with all of the comps for her birthday. Okay, but I'm still not gambling. We extended the invitation and gave villas free everything to every gambling-aged family member she had. It was probably 15 plus people there to celebrate her birthday. By the end of the week, the family members gambled nearly $700K of her money back into the casino. I fix repair pokie machines in Australia, mostly in small rural towns, and the turnover figures on the machines are astonishing. One of the pubs has a lady that drops 40-50K a week and all the pub has to do is ask her if she's okay. Would she like a cup of tea? People get so mad when they lose on these machines that they smash the screens or play button assemblies. Absolutely bonkers and completely government endorsed. Worked in a casino for nearly 10 years. What do you deem a bad loss? I dealt to a wealthy Chinese guy. He lost 12 million, barely a dent in his account. Dealt to a lady who lost a 1,000 bucks and it was pretty much her whole bank account, but she didn't seem fussed. There's always a few that stick out though. A guy was winning about 9 million at the end of my shift. I went home and came back. When I got back he had lost all of it plus another 15 million and was transferring more when I got there as his lucky dealer. I was in fact no longer lucky. I'm a high limits baccarat dealer and I have many regulars I see every single day. There's one lady who plays 3-4K a hand and gets so far down that when she hits for a bonus and makes 150K she barely cares because it doesn't even put her at even. How did you get started dealing? I'm interested in learning if you don't mind sharing. Casinos will usually advertise new dealer classes when they're offering them. You get paid for the class, it's usually about 4 to 6 weeks and they'll teach you 2 major games and some smaller ones. During the interview for the class they'll give you a math test you have to pass before they'll let you in. It's a pretty easy job and pays pretty good. As a new dealer you'll definitely get stuck with grave shift for the first year is one of the downsides. Not a casino employee, but we got a call at work one night for a check the well-being. It was casino security requesting us to check on subject who had lost a lot of money at their tables. The security manager advised that the subject left and was heard making a comment about wanting to end their life due to their losses. Thankfully, I got to the address and was able to speak with subject. They were embarrassed but eventually told me that they had a gambling problem and that this wasn't the first time. They ended up getting transported to the hospital and then eventually spoke with one of our social workers, who was able to get her in therapy. Last I saw them, they had got out of debt and started her own business. I worked in the cage at the time. Guy came up and withdrew 10K from his checking and went out and played. Came back 30 minutes later and did it again. Another 30 minutes and did it again. Came back a 4th time and then started doing cash advances against his credit cards. Goes through all of them over the next 5-6 hours. Right before my shift ends he's at my window going through every card in his wallet, all of them are declining and he asks if we offer credit. Which thank God we didn't. Altogether he probably lost a bit more than 120K in a night. Not the most I've seen but he clearly couldn't afford to lose that much. A guy that randomly came into the casino I work at played a progressive blackjack side bet and wouldn't you know it hit for 500K. Dude bought a Rolex and got his girlfriend a pair of bobs. Over the course of the next 1-2 years he was on a slow decline because you can tell he was starting to get into Drugus and his bets were getting bigger and bigger. He disappeared for a while and heard from coworkers he overdosed and passed away. Winning that jackpot was probably the worst thing for that guy. Not a casino worker, and not one that I witnessed personally. However, I used to work for an online phone sports betting company. One guy was betting on a big soccer game. His team were winning convincingly 3-0, with 80 minutes out of 90 played. He'd just sold his house and had the cash sitting in his account, a couple of $100 grand. The odds were pretty poor, but he saw an opportunity to gain a few more quid. It was a sure thing, right? Except the opposing team scored 4 goals in the last 10 mins plus injury time and won 3-4. Had a guy sit down at a $15 table and turn $200 into Y13K in about 30 minutes. He kept pressing and kept winning. Before long he had a small crowd and full barrel of $500 chips and was working on a second. I finished the shoe and told him that he beat the casino and it was time to run away and never come back. Instead of walking he starts playing 3 hands at 1.5K each. 3 table losses in a row and he'd given it all back and started making trips to the ATM. Next thing you know, he was down about 2.5k and sobbing to the pit boss because he'd spent everything he had and couldn't get out of the parking garage. He was given a parking voucher and put himself on the banned list. Felt sick for the guy. Also watched a few jackpots get zeroed out for child support, but those always got a laugh from the table. My wife works for a casino. One of their high rollers is known for losing obscene amounts of money. So far, due to all his losses, the casino has gifted him a brand new Bentley Continental, a 71 Hemi Cuda that had been meticulously restored, 2 different Escalades, including a brand new Blackwing last year, and a Lucid Air. He loses a lot of money to that casino in order for them to buy him cars like that. And there are others who get the same treatment. I know a guy, a friend of a friend, that has an awful gambling problem that cost him his marriage. Prior to that, years ago, we were both invited to the common friend's bachelor party in Atlantic City. He had sheet credit back then and was strictly a cash and carry guy. He brought $2,000 cash with him to cover his half of the room he was splitting, meals and drinks, and gambling. We were walking through the casino to check in and he peeled off from the group. He showed up at the check-in desk and said, "I just lost all my money on roulette. Can you guys cover me for the weekend?" Apparently he had a feeling while walking past a roulette table and threw all his money on red and lost. We were 3 hours from home and faced with supporting this leech for 2 days. The guys who knew him well had seen shit like this from him before and basically told him he'd get basic food and a place to sleep. No steaks, no booze, and most importantly no gambling money. He was so pissed off that he called his dad and made him drive to Atlantic City to pick him up. Well, I have 16 years in the casino business. I was a dealer for about 3 years and a pit boss for 9. The saddest thing I had witnessed happened over time. There was a genuinely very nice couple that came in and played Let It Ride. The game is atrocious odds-wise, utterly boring, and I was always miserable dealing it. The woman was in her early 50s, quite overweight, and wheelchair-bound, and the husband was very thin and mousy. The husband was always the one to play, and the wife would sit behind him. They didn't even bet heavily, but they were there 7 days a week for hours and hours a day, weeks in a row. As time went on, they stopped being as nice to the staff and to each other. They were both obviously not taking care of themselves as they had been, hygienically speaking. Eventually one night, the husband turned around to ask the wife for more money and she absolutely broke down in a shaking, sobbing fit. Just uncontrollably, inconsolable. He was pretty demanding and she was slow handing over the last couple of 20s out of her purse and she said, "Tom, this is it. If you lose this, we won't eat this month." I absolutely refused to take the money, called my supervisor over and explained the situation, and thankfully, unlike a lot of joints, they backed that decision up. That was very early on in my career and it really hit me hard that I had taken tens of thousands of dollars from those people. If I remember right, we evicted them lifetime and connected them with the state problem gambling service. When I was a pit boss, watching a table in high limit, I saw a guy buy in for $5,000 and run it up to about $250,000 by the time I went home. Badass run. So I come back in the next day at 5 p.m. and the guy is still there. Not surprising. The guy has about 125k in chips in front of him, so I say, "Oh man, Dave took a bit of a thumping while I was sleeping." The pit boss I was relieving was standing off to the side making the stop talking gesture, so I chuckled and went over to get him relieved. Turns out the guy had given it all back, and was in 350,000 more. Oof. Probably the craziest thing I had seen in all of those years was a guy, again in high limit, I was there all the damn time once I was a pit boss, who got beat up all night. Just hours of just getting thumped. After a particularly nasty beat on some splits and double downs, he said, "I lose one more hand, I'm sheeting on the floor." I informed him that would be a super bad idea and went over to call surveillance and security. It was right at the end of a shoe, so this I'm calling while the dealer is shuffling. Security is up there close, but not too close. Surveillance is watching. First hand out of the shoe dealer 10, peeks, rolls over the ace. Quicker than I could blink, the dude has his pants down grunting. Gaming commission and security were none too happy arresting the guy, but I was entertained. Oh, here goes. So Indian casinos were sort of a new thing back in the mid-1990s. Not any locals knew the rules of gambling, so they were like babes in the woods. Well, one busy Saturday night, some wannabe local redneck hotshot rolled in with his wife in his big fancy pickup, and all their friends, and had a pretty good evening. They won a couple grand on the newbie blackjack tables. House DGF because the whole batch spent like $5,000 on food and booze. Next weekend, same batch rolls in, and because they're all sheety bombed drunk, they must have blown $25,000, possibly each. They all got their spanking, lessons learned, and never came back. Worst hangover ever, waking up that you just threw away $25,000 in 1995 dollars, except the wife. The wife of Mayor McCheese started showing up nearly every night. At first she'd just get sloppy, lose a bunch of money at blackjack. But after time, all the fancy rings started to disappear one by one, leaving a tan line. Then her expensive diamond emerald earrings vanished. Her big expensive necklaces went too. Right before the end, her wedding band was gone. She had pawned off every bit of everything like a single stupid blackjack was somehow going to lead her to riches, which she already had before she ruined her life. About 2 weeks after that, she lost her as at the tables again, and went up to the ATM to get more cash. The ATM seized her credit card and she collapsed in a sobbing, screaming heap. She had pawned every piece of jewelry she owned, wrecked her marriage, maxed out all of her credit cards, and was bankrupt. The casino? Security dragged her as outside to her car, where tribal cops were sitting waiting to pull her back out for trying to start a car like shit-faced drunk. The definition of white trash is financially, morally, and intellectually bankrupt. Don't gamble, kids. I'm not a casino worker, however I worked at a gas station that sold scratch tickets. I was doing a 3:11 p.m. shift on a Friday, and about 9 o'clock p.m. this guy comes in all hyped up that he got paid and wanted to buy some $10 scratchers. Not a problem, I say, and go to grab 5 of the $10 tickets he asked for. He stops me before I can get them out and says, "No, I want to pick. I have a system with the numbers." Cue my eye roll and exasperated internal sigh as these guys take forever. 5 minutes later he is rung up and heads not out of the store. No. To the ticket stand at the back to scratch them. He comes back 10 minutes later, wants me to check them for him, so I do. I can't recall if he won anything or not on these 5. But if he did, it wasn't enough. He goes for round 2 of the same thing, 5 more $10 tickets, same hyped up energy, same process of picking and scratching. This continues for an hour and a half, all the while he is getting more and more anxious, and as his hype was replaced with this deranged fear. The process became faster as he started panicking and picking faster and faster as he spiraled down a pit, and I was talking to him, telling him that it's okay to stop and no one is guaranteed to win, and there is no system after the second round to deaf ears. In total he bought all our $10 scratchers but one lost and lost about $600. I got to listen to him call his girlfriend and explain he lost the rent money and hear her yell at him knowing exactly what happened. I got to listen to him call his boss legit crying asking for help. It was sad. Anytime I feel like gambling I think of that guy and I make another choice. Sheet ruins lives for people who can't control it. Worked in finance at a casino. We had access to everyone's lifetime win, it's always called win, and I ran a query one day to sort players with over $100,000 in lifetime winnings, and it was 300 or so players, mostly blackjack and baccarat players. Did it for people with over $100,000 in lifetime losses. Over 4,000. So casinos budget based on theoretical win, Theo for short, and it's an estimate of how much a player will lose on every trip. It's insanely accurate. Like by 10 trips we have a pretty good idea of what type of player you are and will market to you accordingly to bump you to that next level. Oh, you lose on average $350 a trip, I bet free meals will get you to $500. And it does. Those players' cards? They track everything. So we know that you spend $350 a trip but you get comp $200, leaving a profit of only $150 a trip. Well, that's going to drop your comps down a level so your expenses drop. Daily reports would come out with people whose expenses average daily. Theo. Casinos, if you can handle the guilt, are a great place if you love analytics. I miss it, that portion of it, but I have a conscience, and explicitly marketing to fresh off the boat Asians left me with a bad taste in my mouth, and I left after less than a year. I saw people lose $10 a year, and this was a local regional casino in upstate NY. Not a casino worker, but I was a poker pro for a while. There was a guy at one of my smaller home games who would always come in and lose multiple buy-ins. He had a good job and the game wasn't crazy big, so nobody worried that much about him. Then he started playing table games at an online casino. He'd be playing blackjack on his phone while he was playing poker with us, and he kept showing us these hands where he was winning or losing more on a single hand than he was losing all night at the poker game. We started to get worried, and it turns out he had gambled away his entire life savings. He had cashed out all his retirement, emptied his joint bank accounts, and never told his wife. It was high 6 figures. She left him immediately and he stopped coming to the games. I still don't know what happened to him. In hindsight, that was the moment that I stopped enjoying poker. I always enjoyed taking money from suckers, but when I saw that, I don't know. It wasn't the same. It's a real sickness. I feel for those people. Had a lady on a blackjack table right around Christmas time. She hit a lucky lady's bonus for 201 on $5. $1,000 payout. This was a lot of money to her. She was actually crying, saying how much of a blessing it was. I remember handing her tissues and joking, "Act like you've been there before." It was a nice moment. She gave it all back before she even stood up. Not a casino worker, but was in Vegas once, and my buddy wanted to go off the strip. So we head to a casino about a 15-minute drive away, and it was very large and open. It was late afternoon, early evening, and the place was kind of dead. We were at a blackjack table with only one other local. About 30 minutes later we get up to leave the blackjack table and cash out our minuscule winnings. We turn around and see a line of about 100 deep to get to the cashier. We are floored and wonder where all these people came from. Dealer said the casino was running a promotion that if you cashed your work check there you would get something extra in return. And all these people were lined up to get the extra. This was at a time when majority of people already had direct deposits, so the people cashing their physical work checks were the ones least likely to be able to afford it. Always stuck with me of just how sad it was to see people lining up to cash their work checks instead of rent or groceries or necessities. So I had a friend, who I'll call M for the sake of this story. M was a very close friend of mine. We met in secondary school and we did everything together. He was the one person in my life that I could honestly consider my best friend. We did everything together, played video games, movies, sleepovers, everything you normally do with your friends. What I didn't know was that M had a lot of trouble at home, a heavy-handed father and a mother who just didn't care. After we went to separate colleges, we didn't speak as often but still stayed in touch and messaged each other at least once a week. I can remember vividly that one week I messaged him and didn't receive a reply all week. After countless messages and no response, I decided to visit his parents' house to find out if he's okay. His sister answered the door and brought me in to talk. Turns out M has been dealing with his home issues by drinking at pubs, and it was at these pubs he developed a gambling habit. He went on to continuously spend more money than he had by overdrafting multiple bank cards and borrowing money. At some point he dropped out of college and went home. It was at home he had an argument with his parents over unpaid debts. This argument resulted in M packing his belongings and leaving. No one has heard from him since, and he has not been online on any of his social media since that date. Gambling can take its toll and destroy the lives of those that are already vulnerable. So please, take care of your friends who you think may have this issue. Wherever you are now, M, I miss you. I hope you are well and have found yourself a much more comfortable life. These stories are insane. I've always had a philosophy whenever I've gone into a casino, which I can count on both hands. I like playing blackjack, so I play small bet tables with say $40 starting cash. As soon as I'm up enough to play with casino money, I put that $40 in my pocket so I can play for free and not lose anything. One time I stuck $20 in a slot machine and it was gone in one spin. Sheet stuck with me and I'll never play slots again. I didn't see it personally, happened right before I started as a blackjack dealer, so everyone was still talking about it. In 2006 some dude lost like $150K on the blackjack tables, smaller casino in the middle of nowhere. Apparently it was like his life savings in HELOC or something. He pulls out a gun, turns away from the table and shoots himself in the heart. The bullet passed through him, then the table, and clipped one of the dealers in the leg. I've heard of bigger losses monetarily. This one was probably the worst I've heard of though. I was a security guard at a casino once, some 10 years ago, and there was this old man who shot himself while playing through the night. I was not the one who handled it, but he had asked for a rubber band so he could put it around his pant leg at the bottom to hold his sheet in his pant leg so it wouldn't fall out to the floor. He did get kicked out and couldn't understand why.